Okay, let's get right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most incredible roller coaster corporate histories of the modern era. You know, when you see a BMW today out on the street, you see a symbol of premium luxury, cutting-edge engineering, and serious sporty performance. But the journey to get there? Well, it was anything but a smooth ride down the Autobahn. In fact, we're looking at a story of a company that constantly faced absolute total ruin, yet somehow found a way to repeatedly reinvent itself from the ashes.
So you really have to wonder, how exactly did an airplane engine maker, a company that quite literally had to survive by manufacturing kitchen pots and pans not just once, but twice in its history, eventually become a global luxury automotive icon? It is a truly fascinating narrative of pure survival, brilliant engineering, and some massive, dramatic pivots. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Engines in the Sky. Now, BMW's early origins are a bit of a tangled web, honestly. It traces back to three entirely separate companies. The whole thing starts around 1913 with Karl Rapp founding Rapp Motor and Work, alongside another nearby company called Bayerische Flugzeugwerke, which was established in 1916. By 1917, Rapp's company gets renamed to Bayerische Motor and Work. And right there, that is where the BMW name is officially born. But it actually takes a financier named Camillo Castiglioni in 1922 to buy back the BMW name and merge it with that Bayerische Flugzeugwerke production site. Fun fact, that specific site in Munich, it's still the main plant and headquarters of the BMW Group today.
But here's the thing. Their very first product wasn't a car, and it wasn't a motorcycle. It was actually the BMW 3A aircraft engine. Built specifically for the German military during World War I, this straight-six engine was just an absolute marvel for its time. It was incredibly well regarded for its high-altitude performance and, crucially, its amazing fuel economy. The military demand was so overwhelmingly high that the government actually stepped in to fund the rapid expansion of the company. This engine is really what established BMW's foundational reputation for world-class engineering.
Section 2. Survival on two wheels.
After World War I ends, things take a massive turn. The Treaty of Versailles strictly prohibited Germany from manufacturing any aero engines, so overnight, BMW's entire business model was outlawed, gone. To stay alive, they had to pivot and pivot hard. They went from building these high-performance aircraft engines to churning out literal farm equipment, household items, and railway brakes for a company called Knorr-Bremse. Eventually, though, they started building small industrial engines, and that cracked the door open to a completely new path.
And that path led directly to the 1923 BMW R32 motorcycle, which is just an incredible piece of machinery. Designed by Max Friz, this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill bike. The R32 introduced the flat-twin Boxer engine, where the cylinders poked out horizontally for much better air cooling, and it used a shaft drive instead of a traditional chain. Now, the crazy part here is that these core foundational engineering elements, the Boxer engine and the shaft drive, were so perfectly designed that they are still characteristic features of BMW motorcycles today, a full century later. So this early engineering success absolutely laid the groundwork for them to enter the automobile space. In 1928, they officially became a car maker, though they didn't exactly start from scratch. They bought a factory that was making licensed copies of the British Austin 7, a car called the Dixie. But watch how fast they evolve here. By 1932, they released the 320, which is their very first all-original design. Then, just a year later, the 303 introduces their first automotive straight-six engine and that iconic kidney grille you still see on every BMW today. And by 1936, just 8 years after making licensed copies, they released the 328 sports car, which went on to rack up more than 100 class victories in motor racing in a single year.
Section 3. War, Ruin, and Rebuilding.
During the era of National Socialism, BMW transformed from a mobility company into a massive armaments firm for the German war economy, focusing heavily on producing aircraft engines. To enable this massive production effort, the company utilized forced labor. According to the historical records from that period, by the end of World War II, almost 50% of the 50,000-person workforce at BMW AG consisted of prisoners from concentration camps, such as Dachau and Munich-Aulach. After the war, the company found itself in absolute ruin once again. Because BMW was officially classified as an armaments company, Allied forces seized their factories. The main Munich plant was completely destroyed, and a huge chunk of their intact machinery was dismantled and shipped all over the world as war reparations. On top of that, they were totally banned from producing motorcycles or automobiles. So, just to survive day to day, the company once again had to resort to making basic pots, pans, kitchen supplies, and bicycles out of whatever salvaged equipment they could scrape together.
When they were finally given the green light to build cars again in Bavaria in 1952, they actually made a pretty massive strategic misstep. They introduced the BMW 501. Now, it was a beautiful luxury sedan for sure, but it cost roughly 4 times the average German's annual earnings. It was also heavy, quite underpowered because it used a pre-war engine design, and ultimately it was completely commercially unsuccessful. This initial strategy of focusing on low-volume, high-margin luxury cars just simply didn't generate the cash flow the company desperately needed.
Section 4. The 1959 Brink of Bankruptcy.
Throughout the 1950s, BMW fell into a dangerously unbalanced financial trap. On one end of the spectrum, you have the Isetta, this tiny licensed little bubble car, and they sold a ton of them, over 161,000. But the profit margins on the Isetta were razor thin. On the total opposite end, they built these gorgeous ultra-premium luxury V8 models like the 503 and the 507 Roadster, but they were so incredibly expensive that they sold fewer than 700 units combined. The tiny profits from the Isettas couldn't even come close to covering the massive losses from those luxury cars. By 1959, the company was practically drowning in debt.
The situation got so dire that management actually proposed a complete takeover by their arch-rival Daimler-Benz. But what happened next is just a classic underdog story. At the annual general meeting on December 9, 1959, the regular workers, the dealership network, and the small shareholders all rallied together. They outright rejected the Daimler-Benz offer, effectively blocking the merger on the spot and fighting tooth and nail for the company's independence. That sheer perseverance actually caught the attention of Herbert Quandt, whose family already held a stake in the company. Deeply inspired by the workforce's steadfast belief in the upcoming affordable BMW 700 model, Quandt stepped up, expanded his shares, and effectively secured a controlling interest. He restructured the entire company and bet its ultimate survival on the success of the 700. And you know what? It worked. The 700 was a massive hit, and it gave BMW the critical breathing room it so desperately needed.
Section 5. The ultimate driving machine.
The ultimate turning point, however, was the Neue Klasse, or New Class, which launched in 1962. This was a completely new line of compact sports sedans featuring four-wheel independent suspension and front disc brakes. It was sporty, it was incredibly practical, and it firmly established BMW's modern reputation for making dynamic driver's cars. It also officially introduced the Hofmeister kink, that distinct forward-bending styling curve at the rear window that you still see on almost every BMW today. The Neue Klasse was so unbelievably successful, it actually allowed BMW to pay dividends to its shareholders for the first time since the war. Riding the massive wave of success from the ensuing 3, 5, and 7 series, BMW spent the 1990s aggressively transforming from a niche automaker into a global premium powerhouse. Step 1. In 1994, they bought the British Rover Group. Now, while the overall Rover acquisition proved financially challenging and was eventually sold off, BMW very smartly retained the brilliant Mini brand. Step 2. In 1998, they acquired the legendary Rolls-Royce brand. And Step 3. In 1999, they basically invented a completely new segment with the launch of the X5, which they marketed as a sports activity vehicle.
Section 6. Electrifying the Neue Klasse.
Moving into the modern era, BMW was actually quite early to the electric vehicle shift, launching the all-electric i3 way back in 2013. Now they are aiming for 50% all-electric sales by the year 2030, and their strategy here is really unique. They're developing their electric drives entirely in-house. And a massive part of their sustainability push is manufacturing these electric motors completely without the use of rare earth metals, ensuring a much cleaner, more sustainable supply chain.
All of this builds to what is just an incredibly poetic narrative bookend. On one side, you have the original 1962 New Class that literally saved the company from financial ruin. On the other side, you have the upcoming 2025 Neue Klasse. BMW is intentionally reusing the very name that saved them half a century ago to launch their most ambitious leap forward ever, a brand new, dedicated electric architecture. Debuting with vehicles like the new iX3, it boasts a staggering 805-kilometer range and features their cutting-edge 6th-generation eDrive technology.
I'll leave you with this final thought as we wrap up. Will BMW's 2025 Neue Klasse prove to be as revolutionary for its electric future as the 1962 original was for its very survival? Given this company's astonishing track record of cheating death, surviving off kitchenware, and completely reinventing itself time and time again, I certainly wouldn't bet against them. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep